Welcome to True Crime Garage. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Nick, and with me, as always, is a man who knows that it's never too late to not pay your taxes. Here is the captain.
It's good to be seen and good to see you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
This week, we are featuring Henna Chocolate Praline Macaroon by the delectable and creative folks over at Moore Brewing Company. The folks at Moore like to drink sweet and eat spicy, and this beer, Henna, is absolutely a rich and decadent dessert from a 5-star restaurant in a can for you to sip and enjoy. It's a chocolate praline macaroon with cocoa nibs and pecan imperial stout, 14% ABV, so drink this one at home in your garage grade, 4.5 bottle caps out of 5. And let's give some thanks and praise to our friends for helping us out. First up, a big cheers to longtime friends of the show, Janelle and Wes from Round Lake, Illinois.
And a big We Like Your Jib goes out to Sonia from Fort Worth, Texas.
Next up, here's a cheers to John from Guilford, Connecticut. And last but certainly not least, we have a double-fisted cheers to Alexa and Cade from right here in Columbus, Ohio. Everyone we just mentioned contributed to the True Crime Garage Beer Fund, and for that, we thank you.
Yeah, BWRUN Beer Run. For everything True Crime, check out truecrimegarage.com, and while you're there, sign up on the mailing list. And if you haven't subscribed to us yet on YouTube, do so now. Tons of free and bonus content there. Colonel, that's enough of the business.
All right, everybody, gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime. Retired Columbus Police Sergeant John Hurst can't understand how Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old man at the time, just simply disappeared. But he can understand why it has captivated Central Ohio. Hurst said, quote, "He's got everything going for him. Why would this individual just disappear like this?" It's a question Columbus PD and thousands from Central Ohio have been asking for more than 18 years. Brian Shaffer was a medical student at The Ohio State University. As legend has it, he walked into a campus bar and was never seen walking out, nor has he been seen again. The Shaffer case gets revived from time to time, with magazine articles, stories on the internet, and podcast shows like True Crime Garage. Hurst said the attention can always help investigators. A little more detail. Brian Shaffer grew up in Pickerington, Ohio, and he went to The Ohio State University and graduated with a degree in microbiology. Then he began studies at OSU College of Medicine. During his time at medical school, he became romantically involved with Alexis Wagner, another medical student. This was a serious relationship, and the two were going to go to Miami together for spring break in early April of 2006. But Brian disappeared just days prior, when Brian vanished after going out with friends on the evening of March 31st. According to these friends, during the early morning hours of April 1st, Brian was separated from them, and they assumed he had gone home. The security camera outside the entrance to the second-floor bar recorded him briefly talking to two women just before 2 a.m., and then walking off screen. Shaffer has not been seen or heard from since. Columbus police have several theories about what happened. Some suspicion has been directed at a friend, Clint Florence, who accompanied him that night, but has refused to take a polygraph test. While foul play is suspected, it has also been speculated that Brian might be living somewhere under a new identity. Today, we have for you a very special treat. This is an interview with Columbus Police Sergeant John Hurst, who was the lead investigator in the Shaffer case. Conducting the interview is the captain and longtime friend of the show, Maggie Freleng. The two were conducting interviews for a project centered on the disappearance of Brian Shaffer. This audio has not been heard elsewhere and has never been released to the public. This is True Crime Garage.
That's a great start. You're just telling me about who you are. So do you want to introduce yourself and what your relationship is to the Brian Shaffer case?
My name is John Hurst. I'm a retired detective sergeant with Columbus Police. I was the lead investigator on the Brian Shaffer case while I was there. Worked with two other detectives closely with it, and at any given time, we probably in the beginning had 100 officers out searching and talking to people and canvassing the areas.
What was your experience with missing persons cases before this? Had you worked any?
That's kind of an odd way how I ended up with that. I was in charge of the physical child abuse unit, and the missing sergeant was on vacation, and when he was off, I would cover the unit, and when I was off, that he would cover my unit. So he happened to be on vacation that week, and that's how I ended up with the investigation. It came in while he was gone. Prior to that, I'd worked with the missing unit on numerous cases over the years, and this just happened to be one of the big ones we ended up with.
I was going to say, how many of them wound up being missing for over a decade?
Yeah, well, with me, this is the only one. I mean, they still have missing persons with the department that have been filed. I don't know the exact count, but, like 20 or so that have went missing over the years.
And when I talked to a Columbus detective, they said that the missing persons unit normally deals with over 6,000 missing person cases a year.
Yeah. The missing persons unit gets bombarded with a lot of missing person reports. The vast majority of those are going to be runaways, which still gets listed as a missing person.
Right.
And they have to go through those to actually, get to one of the, and I don't want to say actual or good missing cases, but one where there's somebody really, and it's missing, if that makes sense.
So when you first took this case, what were you thinking? We have this attractive, young, white medical student. What was your first thought?
Well, first thought is like any of the missing cases, guy was out at the bar, he's probably going to turn up. But we actually didn't get it until a couple days later. So when we got it, we started talking to the family and find out what was going on. But, initially your thought is, this guy, he's going to turn up. He was out drinking with his friends, and he's just got laid up somewhere, and he'll pop up here, in a day or two. Well, that didn't happen.
The call either came in or everyone started freaking out when he didn't make his flight on his vacation was when it was like the urgency of, we think Brian's missing. At that point, when you guys first realized, okay, this person might be missing, what did you guys do? What were your first steps?
Well, we were contacted by the family, and I believe it was on Monday. We went out to Brian's apartment and made contact with his dad, his brother, and his girlfriend at the time. And, they told us, hey, we're supposed to be going on this trip, possibly maybe getting engaged. That was kind of a red flag for us that somebody just take off and disappear when you're planning a nice trip down South Florida and possibly going to get engaged while you're there. And so that was a big red flag for us when that occurred. We did check to see if maybe he changed the airline ticket, decided to go somewhere on his own. The ticket was never used. It was never changed. So we were like, man, this isn't looking good right now.
So there has always been question about, was he getting engaged or not? But you heard directly from his girlfriend that was a potential thing that was happening.
Well, that was what they thought at the time. Again, whether that was the case or not, don't know. But that was the original thought from the information we were getting from the family.
Were you able to look at Brian Shaffer's financial records?
Randy was able. He had access to Brian's accounts and stuff, so we were able to get that pretty quick. There wasn't any indication that he had used his debit card or a credit card to purchase a ring, but I might have paid cash if that was the case. But
Well, I think this is one of the big questions in the Brian Shaffer case. Was he planning to get engaged? And he was leaving on a Monday, so he still had Saturday and Sunday to make a purchase of an engagement ring if he was going to get engaged on the trip.
yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
How helpful was his family, his girlfriend, his friends? Was everybody cooperative with you?
Yeah, everybody that we contacted cooperated, answered our questions. Again, we had his friend Clint Florence. He declined to take a polygraph, where we had Meredith, the girl that was with him that night, and Randy came in. They took a polygraph. Both of them passed it. We also had Clint subpoenaed down to the grand jury. We had a list of questions that we wanted to ask. We gave it to his attorney. His attorney came back and says he doesn't want to talk. We're going to take the fifth.
So we heard from his attorney that he was always cooperative and always spoke to you guys.
Well, in the beginning, he was cooperative, and he did come in and talk to us and give us an interview and, gave us some information. Then when it got down to the nitty gritty, when it comes to polygraphs, if you have an attorney, most attorneys are going to tell you not to take it.
I would not take a polygraph.
So a lot of people were like, oh my God, he didn't take a polygraph. In this day and age, if you hire an attorney, and there may be even some police officers out there to tell you probably, even if you're innocent, don't take the polygraph.
Well, you have nothing to win, because if you take the polygraph and you fail, well, then you look guilty. And if you don't want to take one, then you look guilty. And if you pass the test, well, nobody believes in the lie detector test anyways.
Right. And, as law enforcement, what we use polygraph for, it's just kind of a tool to see, do we need to continue looking in this area? Even if they pass it, doesn't mean we're not going to, take them completely off the list. But, we'll start looking a little harder, maybe somewhere else, in a different direction.
Were you suspicious of Clint in any way?
Well, I guess you could say we became suspicious when we were trying to get him to polygraph, because it would have cleared up a lot of questions, in my opinion, if he would have come in and answered the questions like Randy and Meredith did.
So there's still outstanding questions Clint has not answered to your knowledge.
Yeah. There was some questions that we wanted to ask and weren't able to do it. And again, I always throw out there, people lawyer up, innocent people lawyer up, guilty people lawyer up, and you're paying an attorney to give you advice. I don't like it, but that's the nature of the business. It's what the attorneys do is what they get paid for.
So what can you share some of the outstanding questions you have?
Probably not. It may sound accusatory, and without having him come in,
right,
and at least give us the opportunity to ask him, I would probably err on the side of caution and not do that.
Can you share some things that he cleared up that we might not know?
I think most of it's out there. What we've put out. I've done a ton of interviews over the years, and we've released a lot of different information. Clint was just able to give us some support information on the questions that we were asking that he did answer. I don't have anything new that I could share with you.
Well, obviously, Clint was an eyewitness that night to what was going on with Brian and going on with his life. It seems that when Brian's father confronted Clint a few times about his involvement and claiming that Clint knows what happened and Clint has the answers, that's kind of when Clint backed away and lawyered up.
That may have had something to do with it. I don't know exactly when Randy, I know Randy approached him a couple different times over the years, and I don't know if that was before or after we had asked him to take the polygraph. I don't remember now, but that could have played into it.
So we went yesterday to where the bar used to be, and we were looking around and trying to figure out, obviously the two biggest questions are, was he still in the bar and something happened to him, or did he actually leave the bar? So can you help clear up for us, what kind of video footage there actually was that was looked at? Is it possible he did leave the bar?
Oh, it's absolutely possible that he left the bar. They had video cameras all over that place. My speculation and my theory is that he went out one of the construction entrances because they were plywood and then they had a chain going through them with a padlock. And when we went down there, you could push on them and somebody would be able to get in or out, without a lot of difficulty.
And there was no cameras looking at that area.
Well, there was, but those cameras actually were the panning, and it's a possibility that they had panned away from where he had exited. The other cameras, one of my detectives, Andre Edwards, he took all the discs. We duplicated them. He took some home. He had a projector. He put his computer on it, made it lifelike on the wall. And he sat there and went through every frame, tracked everybody coming in, this was a daunting task for him. It took a lot of time, but we were able to track everybody in and out except for Brian.
Could you tell us about the orange shirt guy?
Now, what happened with him is during the review of the videos, we seen this guy. He was up and down the escalator, and it was kind of suspicious, so we tracked him down, and he drove a taxi, and he was just hanging out waiting for the bar to close to pick up a fare. It was one of the things that we looked into. We tried to uncover every rock that we could. Yeah, that made for an interesting story, I think. A lot of people picked up on that. Yeah, we were able to track the guy down.
Well, it also shows the diligence that was done, too, in terms of looking at the cameras. I was going to ask, so I've never been to Ugly Tuna. I'm from New York. This is my first time in Columbus.
Uh-huh.
So hearing today from the band about this bar, and, we told them about the theory that the band did it, and they were laughing hysterically because they said there would have been no way to even do that in this particular bar. So I guess that's my question, is it possible something happened to him in the bar?
Well, anything's possible. Through our investigation, nothing came to light that anything occurred in there. And it would be difficult. It was a big open room, had a bar in the middle, and a kitchen off to the side. We had dogs come in, and cadaver dogs, and they would have picked up on blood if there had been any blood in there. We had them go through the entire building. We actually went up on the roof, make sure he wasn't up there, searched all the corners in that area, and removed plates, cover plates, just to see if maybe somebody might have stuffed him in there. But when we were done, the building was clean. There wasn't anybody in there.
Right, and we were talking about how, it's renovated today, so there was theories that maybe he's in a wall or something.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't be possible to be in a wall at this point.
No, and I never thought that was really a feasible possibility to begin with.
Was the entrance and exit to the bar the only entrance and exit, or was there an exit way through the kitchen?
You couldn't get out through the kitchen. They did have a fire escape set of stairs that went down. There was a camera that if somebody opened that door, the camera would cycle to that door. Unfortunately, when it did something like that, it started to pan, and the security guard that was working that night overrode it and took it away. But we were able to look at other cameras in the courtyard and didn't see anybody come out of that area. The only other way would be, like I said, go down the stairs. You can't really see the elevator now, but at the time you could see the elevator, and then there's a set of stairs to the left of the elevator. So he could have went down one of those, and that led right into the construction site. Mm-hmm. Then there was a hallway behind the other businesses down there. That had a camera in it, so he didn't go down that hallway.
Well, it's hard to explain to people that haven't been there that you see the video footage of the escalators, but the blank spot that you're seeing in the footage is actually two doors that are fire escapes, essentially, two exit doors. So when me and Maggie were there today, we went through the exit doors. I don't know if we're supposed to be there, but we went down there and we went through the hallways and nobody stopped us. So we just kept on exploring, if you will.
Well, I mean, again, that was my first time. So I was like, wait a minute, were these exits always here? He could have gotten in one of these. And we were wondering about the cameras in those exits.
Like I said, the building at the time is nowhere near what it was right now. The elevator, there's actually a door you got to go through now to get to the elevator. Where at the time, you could just walk up to the elevator, push the button, and hop on. And then that took you to the back hallway and down to where the construction's going on. And we did check to see if maybe he might have went down and wandered through a business before he was picked up on camera. And again, that was found not to be the situation. So
I forgot to ask you, what year did you retire?
3 years ago, on January 18th of 19.
Was this a case you were working on until your retirement? Did it go cold? I mean, were you still getting leads?
Well, we still would get something from time to time. A lot of it would be psychics. Alleged psychics, and again, we didn't discard it just because somebody said, "Hey, I'm clairvoyant and I have this feeling, or I'm having this dream." Whatever we could check out, we would. The unfortunate situation is 99.99% of the stuff that came in through that avenue were very vague. We had one, he's in a bunch of weeds under some trees in a field. How are we going to go find something like that? He's laying in the basement of a brick house in a prone position. Again, how many brick houses do we have in the area, not just in Columbus, but in that area? So a lot of the stuff that came in, we look at it and we're like, yeah, there's nothing we can do with this. But we did get tips come in where somebody would say they had seen him. Somebody seen him allegedly working in a restaurant in Detroit. So we contacted the Detroit Missing Persons Unit up there and had them, send them the flyer and had them go out and talk to the management. And they're like, no, he's never worked here. We had sightings in Texas and Colorado, California. We had one in Sweden, supposedly. Somebody seen him over there. We had one in the Virgin Islands. And again, we did what we could to do, follow through on those. We had the FBI to check the Virgin Island situation, and again, that didn't produce anything.
How extensively was the FBI involved?
Their VICAP unit was in contact with me quite often. Anytime I needed something, all I had to do was pick up the phone and call and say, hey, can you go check this out for us? We had the Texas Rangers a couple times check some stuff out for us down in Texas. So it was pretty extensive investigation.
So you said during the investigation you were able to give some people polygraph tests. One of those people was Brian's father. Were you able to give a polygraph test to Brian's brother, Derek?
Now, Derek that night was out with some friends, and typically Derek and Brian would meet their dad at the same time. And Derek wasn't able to go because he'd already made plans with some friends, and they were out for the evening.
So Brian and his father had dinner the night that Brian went missing, but his brother wasn't able to join them that night.
Yeah, typically when Randy would meet with Brian, Derek and Brian would go together. And that night, Derek had already made plans by the time, Randy had asked, hey, can you guys meet me for dinner? Derek was like, I can't do it, man. We already have plans.
Is it true that Brian and his dad got in an argument that night?
Well, that's speculation. What we did find out and we knew was Brian's mother had split her life insurance policy up. Randy got half, and the two boys got 25%. There's a story that's been floating around out there on the internet that they got into an argument over the life insurance policy, and that the boys weren't supposed to get it, and they should get the money back. We never were able to really sustain that information.
Well, that's what's tough about looking into a case like this that's so widely talked about on the internet is all the speculation, and And is what you're hearing true, or is what you're hearing just a fictitious story, some rumors that got some legs?
It's like what we have to do. We get all this information. You got to sift through it and find out, okay, what's the real deal here?
Yeah, because one of the rumors was that Randy was cut out of the will, and so that might be a motive for why Randy would want his son to go missing, and also the fact that Randy didn't have an alibi for the night that his son went missing.
Right. Well, and like that's why we had him come in, take a polygraph, and he passed it with no issues at all. When we were blaming him, it was just something we needed to get done to answer, those types of questions. And then you're going to have people argue, well, maybe he lied and got away with it on the polygraph. I'm no expert on polygraphs, but, for the most part, I think as long as the operator is properly trained and has experience behind them, it's not going to be a bad read on it. So,
is there, I know you mentioned Clint, but anyone that you wish you could have talked to, or anything you wish you could have had during this investigation?
I wish I could have flown to all these locations and did the interviews myself, but that wouldn't be feasible, for the department to do that. I mean, we were having sightings all over the place. But yeah, I mean, there's, I think her name was Shelley Wineland, his previous girlfriend. I would have liked to talk to her in person. I did speak to her on the phone, and ended up I had to send the Rangers. One of the Texas Rangers went out and interviewed her for me.
So I believe she was a high school girlfriend of Brian's, and when she'd come back into town, or Brian would come back into town, they would end up hanging out together.
Yeah, they were still friends, but that's all it was after they had split. So.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. I do not like to do business with anyone or any entity that provides me with complicated bills, upcharges, and is constantly increasing their monthly fees. It's dishonest. It's bad business practices. Mint Mobile is not that. All Mint Mobile plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone number, and all of your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/TCG. That's mintmobile.com/TCG. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/TCG. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
So Brian went missing April 1st, 2006. His father would end up passing away during a heavy windstorm in September of 2008. After his death, his obituary was placed online. One of the signatures said, "To Dad, love Brian," from the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah, we were actually, we were able to trace that back to one of the public libraries on the north side of Columbus, and we went out to see if we could get any camera video on it, and unfortunately, their camera at the time wasn't working, when people come through the door, and they didn't have a camera on the computer. So
were there cameras that should have been working that weren't?
Oh, well, when we went and did a canvass of the area looking for cameras, the Wendy's that was across the street at the time We checked to see if they had a camera on their drive-through, and it wasn't working. So, and even if it had been, it may not have picked him up. But then when Detective Edwards went around looking for, he was the one that went around looking for him, there was a lot of fake cameras up that looked like real cameras, but they were just fake cameras. It seemed like every turn we made, there was something that would pop up that is like, are you kidding me? You know, like the cameras. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It was a horrible situation for us because we're thinking, well, maybe this can get us somewhere. And we go out and, well, our camera's not working, or that's not a real camera. And, you know, that was down in the area the way Brian would walk home. And unfortunately, back then, we didn't have all the Ring doorbell cameras on that maybe we could have pulled. But, yeah, it was frustrating.
The Ugly Tuna Saloon bar was in a new complex, but can you explain maybe how difficult or tough that area was back when Brian went missing?
Well, I think if you stayed on High Street and maybe one block in either direction, at that time it wasn't too bad, but the further you drifted away from High Street, especially going to the east.
He went out a back exit. He wouldn't have been on High Street. He would have kind of been in that.
Well, he would have came out, yeah, if he'd went out the back entrance, he would have been facing that way, and he could have stumbled, you know, went that way thinking he was heading home. But if he'd went out the side or the front, they had 3 entrances at the construction site, so depending on which one he'd went out. But again, you know, unfortunately, we weren't able to pick anything up on camera.
So you're saying at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, there's parts of that building that were under construction. There was 3 exits through the construction site?
Yeah.
And what about the idea that he could have fallen in a construction pit and been covered with concrete?
At that location or a different location?
At the Ugly Tuna location.
No. When we went in there, everything was dug up. They were actually putting in the elevator shaft, which most time they'll do that before they do a lot of the other things. There was no fresh cement poured anywhere that would indicate that would have been the case.
So I guess where Captain was going is like, how likely do you think it was that he left and something happened to him on the streets?
Well, I would say that's pretty likely that he got out of there. Depending on how much he had to drink, he may have passed out somewhere. You know, he could have passed out, fell in a dumpster. You know, it's hard to tell. A lot of people think he might have fell into the Olentangy River at the time, but at that time it wasn't but, you know, a couple feet deep, which you could drown in that, but it's not going to carry you away. So, I mean, there's a lot of theories out there on the internet. I quit reading them because I just shake my head. I'm like, man, you know, this is crazy.
Well, this case has really blown up on the internet, and there's a lot of rumors and speculations, and one that gets brought up many times when I'm talking to individuals that are fascinated with the case is Brian's sexuality. Was he straight? Was he bi? Did he have any homosexual relationships with anybody? That
did come up during the investigation. We actually got that information from Shelley, that he had experimented with it. I mean, that was brought up, and there was somebody who stated that, yeah, that happened.
The story that we have been told is that Brian was going to propose to his girlfriend on this trip that he didn't make. They're leaving that Monday. When people start speculating that he might be gay, then the question becomes, would that be enough of a reason to run away and start a new life?
Yeah. And that was discussed with in the unit, and a couple of our superiors that were over the bureau at the time, that was discussed, that maybe he had just taken off and started a new life. And, you know, I mean, if you don't use your name, social security number, date of birth, you could do that. It's not impossible, but it's not the easiest thing to do either. We did check his computers to see if maybe he had done some online searching to get information on how to do that. We also did, for suicide. That was another thing out there. He killed himself somewhere. But on the computer, we weren't able to find anything. And even though when you go on, and even if you delete it, you're still going to have it. If you have the right equipment, you can go in and pull this stuff off.
So was he looking up weird stuff, or was he just looking up normal stuff?
Just normal stuff. I mean, there was nothing out of the ordinary. He had his computer he did for school, and then he had his other computer. With
the speculation that Brian was going to drop out of school and quit everything to start a new life, to have a romantic relationship, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Did you ever discuss his sexuality or the possible experimentation with his sexuality with his father?
We didn't bring that up with Randy. We didn't see any need to do that at the time. The information we got was later, and we don't, a lot of stuff we didn't put out there because there just wasn't any need to try to, make somebody look one way or the other when, there's no real substance to that's going to benefit the investigation.
Was there anything that you found that would indicate he wanted to or tried to start a new life?
No, there was nothing to indicate that. There was nothing in his apartment. I mean, when his apartment was immaculate, it was clean, bed was made, everything was put in order.
Did he have anything packed for his vacation at all?
No, I didn't. But, he could have been. This was Friday night when he went out, so
right, he the morning of. We have 7 a.m. flight.
I've done that. I've done that.
But he had guitars as well.
Yeah.
And he left because I'm a guitar player, and I'm like, if I'm going to start a new life, I'm taking the guitars with me.
At least one of them, right? Yeah, we did. They did have tickets to go see Pearl Jam, and we had reached out to the manager and told him, hey, he's supposed to be there at this concert, probably not going to show up, but can you, put the word out for us? And they did. And Randy and Derek and I think Alexis and a couple other people went down and handed out flyers to people coming in attendance. This was a pretty extensive investigation.
Well, in a lot of missing person cases, we have eyewitness accounts, but there was an eyewitness account from a detective. Were you the detective that thought they saw Brian?
No. Detective Edwards thought he seen Brian, and he stopped him, and it was actually Derek.
Which would make a lot of sense because Brian and Derek look similar. Obviously, they're brothers.
Do you think the case will be solved?
I would like to say yes, but I think this is going to be one of them cases that we probably will never know. Like I said, I have my theories, what might have happened.
Can you share that?
Yeah. I don't think he committed suicide. A lot of people think, he went out and killed himself somewhere. Most people, if you're going to commit suicide, you want to be found. You're not going to go do it somewhere where you're not going to be found. And then, it's a possibility that with what he was drinking that night, he may have stumbled into a dumpster and you got picked up the next day and emptied. And what we did check was to see where the dumpsters were all taken. At that time, the City of Columbus dumpsters were going down to the landfill here in Franklin County. The commercial dumpsters were being shipped to a site down in Tennessee. So, and once they get into a landfill, they work an area and they bring the trash in and it's covered with dirt. We did take cadaver dogs down to the landfill here. The only problem was, and we talked to the dog owners, that they're going to hit on anything that has blood on it. It could be something as small as a Band-Aid, and there's feminine products, those type of things. So we did go down and try to use the dogs to do that. Wasn't very successful with it. Obviously we didn't find him, but the stuff that they did alert on was the typical stuff you find in a landfill.
Well, I think one of the other reasons why this case has fascinated the internet so much is that you got a guy that goes into a bar, he's seen going in, but he's not seen coming out. But the more I've looked into the case, the more it seems like this investigation was very, very thorough, more so than a lot of missing person cases. So a theory that makes sense to you is that he was intoxicated and found his way into a dumpster.
I think that's a possibility.
But wouldn't he have to climb in the dumpster? Like climb into it?
No,
right?
the dumpsters down there have them side doors. And, if you walk up to it, they're usually like right about here. And who knows? He may have been throwing up. And again, this is just a theory I have. Went over and started throwing up in the dumpster and passed out and fell in. That's a possibility.
So it seems like from what you understand of that night, he was pretty drunk, because we heard that Randy was trying to say he wasn't like a drinker and wouldn't have been drinking.
Well, Brian, from what we found out, liked his alcohol, and he didn't do it all the time. But, on occasion he would go out, and, this wouldn't have been the first time that he left on his own. That was something that the people, when we interviewed his friends and stuff, were like, yeah, that's not unusual him, just take off. He just goes and does his own thing. And then you might find him passed out in a lawn or something. So yeah, I mean, it's a possibility that would be the case, that he just had too much drink, passed out. We went down and checked the bridge, and when we had dive teams out doing different places, and we had horses out going up the trails. We had the bike guys going up the trail.
Well, and Randy and his family and friends, they checked all over the city as well.
Yeah, Randy did a lot on his own as well.
We're going to do our best to talk to Clint.
Well, good luck with it, because he hasn't talked to anybody.
And because Clint won't talk to anybody, didn't want to take the polygraph test, it's like, what is he hiding? And I've heard rumors that it's possible that him and Brian had more than friendship relationship, that maybe at some point it became romantic.
They could have been. We interviewed some roommates of Clint's. And Clint and Brian had roommated for a little while, and then Brian moved out, and we interviewed the two roommates that Clint had after that. In their opinion, they made statements to us that they felt they were a little too touchy-feely, more than what guys normally would do.
Do you think that could be why Clint doesn't want to talk? He doesn't want that out?
It could be. He doesn't want that to get out. That was one of the things we did discuss in the unit, what are the possibilities here? So yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions that we would like to find out. But
so Clint and Meredith, there is footage of them leaving that night from the garage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, I would think what could Clint possibly know about anything? So what could Clint help us with? I mean, people think he's like the key to this.
Well, they were close. So if, let's say Brian decided, hey, I've had enough. I lost my mother. I don't want to get engaged. I just want to get out of here. Clint would probably have known that if there was a plan for Brian to leave that night. But again, we never had the opportunity to ask him those things.
Well, and back to Clint real quick, like you said, he wasn't being super cooperative. He lawyers up, and the lawyer has made the statement that Brian should come forward and tell everybody what happened, and it's not up to Clint to tell everybody what happened.
Well, his attorney, and I don't know where he got it, made a statement about a detective had told him that Brian was alive, and if that was the case, I think that's why he made that statement.
Is that true that a detective told him that?
None of the detectives I was working with at the time made that comment.
Do you think there is anybody out there that knows something?
If other than falling in a dumpster and disappearing that way, yeah, somebody's had to seen something. The only problem with that is, at one time they were offering $100,000 reward for any information, and nobody came forward. Nobody. I mean, we had psychics coming in with their, I get, he's in the basement of a brick building. I guess that, if we find him in a basement of a brick building, then they can make a claim to Crime Stoppers, maybe. I don't know. But.
So after talking with the band today and talking with you, and never having been here until today, I feel very comfortable personally saying I don't think that he stayed in the bar, and I think he left the bar.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind he left the bar. You know, it's just what baffles everybody is how to get out of there without being seen. And, you know, there is an explanation for that, whether people want to accept it or not. You know, I mean, if I had a camera on the front door here and it's panned to the left and it's looking over here and you go out the door and go that way, it's not going to pick you up.
It's an amazing coincidence.
Yeah. And then we did, you know, go through the neighborhood trying to find other cameras. There was a 7-Eleven across the street. And the only camera they had was inside, didn't have anything outside, on the cashier in case somebody come in and rob them.
Well, so that's what we were wondering too. Did the bar have cameras inside their own?
No.
They didn't.
No, there was no cameras inside the bar.
So we don't actually know for sure. I mean, we feel confident he left the bar, but we don't know for sure he left the bar.
Well, I feel confident he left the bar.
Alive. You think he left the bar alive, not dismembered in a something.
I mean, it's somebody even, I think there was a speculation out there that they took him back in the kitchen and cut him out and took him out the kitchen door. Well, the only door going into the kitchen is leading out to the bar.
So my last question for you, and you might have other follow-ups, but my last question is, what is it like to work one of the most infamous missing person cases? I mean, you were the first detective. You are the guy with all the information. I mean, what is this like to work this case and have retired without it being solved?
Very frustrating. I mean, I think a police officer, depending on, if you're in a metropolitan area where you have a lot of high crime and this kind of thing goes on, you're going to have a case that pops up that ends up being a thorn in your side. And I say that not in a bad way, but it's just no matter what you tried, no matter what you did, you still didn't get any answers. And then to leave and still not have any answers, it was very frustrating. And it's still frustrating.
Well, and there's still a possibility that somebody comes forward with information.
Oh, I would love somebody, even if they did it anonymously, to come forward and getting back to maybe he did go start another life, and I've said this before, and I've told the news media, hey, all he's got to do is contact us. We'll verify it's him. And if he doesn't want anybody to know where he's at, it'll never get told.
But wouldn't you have to close the case then?
Yeah.
You would. So if the case was just mysteriously closed, I mean, wouldn't, at least us knowing the way that works, we would be like, oh, maybe they found him.
Well, if we find him, it would, if he was alive, like I said, we're going to respect the person's privacy. We would contact, the family, which is pretty much Derek right now, and say, hey, your brother's alive. He doesn't want anybody to know where he's at, but just to give you some peace of mind, he's okay.
If you are a member of law enforcement or a first responder and you have a case that you would like True Crime Garage to feature from your jurisdiction, please email the show. Our contact information is available on our website. For this case and any missing persons case from the great city of Columbus, Ohio, any tips regarding the Brian Shaffer case should be directed to the Columbus Division of Police Investigative Desk at 614-645-4624.
I want to thank everybody for joining us here in the garage each and every week. Have a very happy holiday. Colonel, do we have any recommended reading for the beautiful listeners?
A little recommended listening for you. Check out Wrongful Conviction, a true crime podcast hosted by founding board member of the Innocence Project, Jason Flom, as well as Pulitzer Prize winning Maggie Freleng and Emmy Award winning Lauren Bright Pacheco. Wrongful Conviction features intimate conversations with men and women who have spent years in prison for crimes they maintain they did not commit. Some have been fully exonerated and reunited with family and friends, while others continue to languish, with some facing execution on death row. This gripping series reveals the tragedy of injustice as well as the triumph that is possible when people demand change. Check out Wrongful Conviction, a true crime podcast. You can find that recommendation and many more on our recommended page on our website, truecrimegarage.com.
And until next week, be good, be kind.
And don't litter.